Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, kushalmehra. Today's discussion is with someone I have a lot of respect for and who I consider a friend and ally, Anand. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hi, good evening, Kushal. Pleasure.
All right, Anand. So I'm going to start today's podcast because obviously it's titled Are Social Media Platforms Consistent? So just to give everybody a brief background about why we are talking about this is that I think a couple of weeks or a few days ago, so something happened, right? There was a mob that lynched a police station. And after the lynching of the police station, uh, you quoted a religious scriptures. You literally, that's all you did, right? You tweeted out, I think it was the Sahih Bukhari or the Sahih Muslim. I don't remember what it was.
No. I always quote from the holy book.
Okay, the Quran.
So that yes. So it is the word of God. Everything else is alterable or may not be followed or may be followed, but that is the scripture that has to be quoted.
All right. So you quoted the Quran, and if I get it right, Twitter suspended your account. But I don't know what reasons Twitter suspended your account for. But let's start from here. So how does it happen? Why does Twitter suspend your account for literally quoting the Quran, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah. So first of all, good evening to all your viewers and listeners. It's a real pleasure to be on your show. I think this is the third time, if I'm not mistaken, Kushal.
Second.
Or maybe the second time. Yeah. So it's a real pleasure. Of the question that you asked, I was, to be honest, initially in the initial moments, I was surprised because it was a verbatim quote. But then I wasn't as well because I realized that Twitter has shot itself in the foot. And the reason for that is that they have, so I don't know what the data is, maybe every hour there are millions of tweets that go out. So obviously there aren't people who are inspecting each and every tweet. There are possibly algorithms that decide. Although I'm not sure if a tweet is reported, does that go to is that fed to the algorithm or is that seen by a human being? So I'm not too sure of that. But in any case, there must be thousands, maybe millions of tweets that are reported by aggrieved people. So my tweet, which actually verbatim quoted the quote-unquote blasphemy verse, which if I were to read it out here, I think maybe your account also would be suspended, but let's go ahead with it. Yeah, I can't hear you for some odd reason. Okay, now I can.
No. I accidentally muted myself.
All right. Yeah. So it was those who abuse Allah and His Messenger, Allah has prepared for them a humiliating punishment in this world and the hereafter. So that was the tweet. And that is a verbatim quote from the Holy Quran. And Twitter locked my account, suspended me. And the reason they gave was that you may not tweet anything which is considered to be hateful. Now, this is a verbatim quote from Quran. So in effect, what Twitter was doing was thinking, or their algorithms were thinking, were that this quote, i.e. something verse from the God itself, Allah, is hateful. So if they continued my ban, they would have had to face the ire of 1.8 billion people from around the world saying that how dare you consider a word of Allah to be hateful. Yeah. So it went on for about 10 days. And after 10 days, the Twitter people there, they emailed me, they apologized. And they said that the tweet is not going to be deleted. And that was it. Now, it raises many questions. And these are, ironically, these are the questions that I myself had raised a couple of months ago when, if you remember, Twitter had flagged Donald Trump's tweet saying that this is, I can't remember what the context was or something like that, but they kind of said that this tweet will not show because of these reasons or whatever. Or he said law and order. That is what he tweeted, if I'm not mistaken. That was during the riots, that were in the aftermath of the shooting of the black man. So he tweeted in caps, law and order, and that was considered as inflammatory by Twitter. So they kind of hid that tweet. And there was a show on Times Now. And I said, look, the whole point of why I'm always against banning hate speech is because this is all subjective. Somebody is deciding what is hate and what is not. And this can't be right, because as you know, I am a free speech absolutist. Let me rephrase that, because many people say, well, free speech absolutist might mean that anything. No, I think the closest that I come to accepting is the US First Amendment, which is that free speech is absolute. Of course, there is a dichotomy there, but anyhow, they say that obviously you can't have an army man being arrested and by the enemy and disclosing all the secrets under free speech. So, I mean, there are some caveats, very few caveats. But I think as far as it comes to religion, I'm an absolute believer in free speech. That you cannot decide something has offended your religious sensibilities, and nobody who quotes or comments on religion should be imprisoned or jailed under offending religious sensibilities. In India, we have that law, as you know, Section 295A. So that is my starting and ending position. So on that show, I made it very clear that, look, in fact, I quoted, I can't remember which Quranic verse I quoted, but it was eerily similar to what actually happened to me. Or maybe it was that I said, look, I being a Hindu, if I say that I forbid Muslim women marrying Hindu men, or I can't quite remember. Would you call me a bigot? So one of the panelists said, yes, you are a bigot. And I said, look, this is what the Quran quotes, that, it is forbidden for Muslim men to marry polytheist women and vice versa. Now, what I said was considered as bigoted by this Muslim panelist, but he reads it every day. He doesn't consider that as bigoted. So obviously, in his mind, he has, kind of bifurcated that whatever is the word of God is not hateful. But if somebody not even paraphrases it, quotes it, if a human quotes it, then that is hateful. Now, that's laughable, to be honest. So, and that you can extend it to any platform. And as far as my reckoning is that when you call Twitter or Facebook or any other social media platform a platform, that is what it is. Because the moment you start deciding, editorializing, then it doesn't remain a platform anymore. It's like saying that on this platform, only Rajdhani Express is allowed to come. Gomti Express nahi aayegi. Ya 11 up nahi aayegi, 11 down. It's not a platform anymore. So, there has to be absolute freedom of expression. That would include, blasphemy. That would include offending religious sensibilities. Of course, the caveat being that if somebody is inciting a mob, or, like I said, the First Amendment, imminent threat, and that same goes for sedition laws and all that. So that has been my position, and I think it was vindicated when Twitter decided to allow me to come back and to allow for that verse to stay, even though inadvertently, willingly or otherwise, their algorithms or a human being considered that verse as hateful. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and the irony in this entire thing is that they suspended your account for literally quoting a religious text. And right now on Twitter, there is a huge hashtag called Desecrate the Quran, which is full of videos which have people tearing the Quran, tearing pages of the Quran, spitting on the Quran, and doing all kinds of weird things to the Quran. And not even a single video there was suspended. So that takes me to the main core question. Do you think there is, when it comes to the way Twitter is conducted, now it could be an algorithmic problem, as you rightfully said, but do you see an inherent asymmetry and a bias in the platform itself? And that bias depends on the politics of the country.
Yeah, so I think the starting position has to be that, of course, there is a bias. And in fact, the Twitter CEO, Jack, has admitted that Twitter has a left-leaning bias in front of the Senate hearing. If I'm not mistaken, I can't quite remember what exactly he said, but this is what he said, and which is true. But it's the same in journalism as well. It's the same in non-STEM fields. Bias creeps in. Now, you can say that you can decide the percentage. You can say that, look, there is a 10% right-wing bias and 90% left, but it's definitely not 50-50. That is my assessment. There is pronounced left-wing bias in all fields that are non-science, and I think that is in our country especially. And people have collected data. For example, they find that what was it in American non-STEM faculty? 95% are Democrats, 5%. I can't quite remember. So this left-leaning thing is the truth. You can't just deny it. So there's that. The other thing is that in some instances, stupidity takes over. For example, even though I completely disagree with this guy called Sanjay Hegde, who is apparently a lawyer, he had on Twitter a background photograph. I think background DP is what it's called. It was a very famous photograph. Can't remember who took it, but it is a collection of people who are giving the Nazi salute. And there is one guy who isn't, who has his arms crossed. And it's a very powerful photograph. That's like defiance, and it's very powerful. So he had that. And Twitter suspended his account because according to Twitter, nothing that is Nazi insignia or anything that has reference to Nazism will be allowed. Now that's so stupid, because here is a photograph that is actually being critical of Nazis. So I don't know where that thing is. I stood up for him, even though I got a lot of flack for that. But I think doing the right thing means that you don't have to consider the person who has been slighted or who's been victimized. It's a moral stand. So Twitter goes the other way as well. But of course, my assessment is that more often than not, it actually tilts hugely in the favor of the left wing. But that's that, and that is only natural because you bring human component in. And a lot of people, in fact, there is this thing, people who aren't objective, they love saying that you cannot bring objectivism, in any field. That's absolute rubbish. In science, there is complete objectivism. Of course, you can decide what field, you're going to pursue in science. So, for example, you can, there can be a right-wing or left-wing bias in the kind of fields you decide that scientists should pursue. But once you pursue any given field in science, how can it be left-wing or right-wing? Because it's based on discovery, it's based on evidence, it's based on reproducibility. I mean, to give you an example, the science minister tomorrow can say that, look, we are going to give $2 billion to do research on, cow or cow urine or something like that. So you can say, yes, there is a bias because he's deciding the subjects to be pursued, the money to be given to the subjects based on his ideology. Fair enough. But once you start pursuing it, once you start to discover and investigate whether indeed cow urine has properties that are over and above human urine, incidentally, I have a thread on that, and there is no difference between the antibacterial properties of cow urine versus human urine, but cow urine is antibacterial. But what I'm saying, you know what I mean? So, once you start investigating that, where is the ideology? It is based on the proof. So either cow urine is antibacterial or it isn't. So, people say, oh, you can't in journalism. Of course you can be objective. It's only people who aren't objective, in order to cushion their own bias, they love professing this. And a lot of left-wingers say this, that, look, I can't, there is no objective. People who say that they are objective are it. So there is a difference between being neutral and being objective. I'm not neutral. As I've said before, 2013, I wrote it in a blog, that to be neutral is actually to take sides, in effect. And I took the example of Switzerland. Switzerland in the World War was neutral. In effect, it actually took the side, of Hitler. So a lot of loot and everything of Nazis, they went to Switzerland, still there. They're still fighting cases. But you can be objective, so that's the opinion. And once you have any algorithm that is deciding what is hate, what is not, what is offending somebody, what is not, what is contempt of court, what is not. These are all human subjective decisions. And of course, errors would creep in because you will never be able to perfectly define what is hate speech, So that's my stand. And I think Twitter should go, it's a platform, it should remain one.
But I don't know what your views are. I just one question and then we'll move on to the next part. But there's a significant dichotomy here. And this happens not just with Twitter. I think it's with Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just the social media monster in general, that they seem to be pretending to be technology platforms, but they behave like media platforms. Because the moment you can't dead name a person on Twitter, right? You can't say a person who has transformed from an ex-female to a male, you can't use their previous name on Twitter. Your account will be suspended forever. Like there are certain
really?
guidelines. Oh yeah, you can't dead name. It's called dead naming. So my point is that if they claim to be a technology platform, then why do they behave like a media platform? So how does one solve this dichotomy that these platforms and they are monopolies now? So in a way, they are the biggest threat to freedom of expression too, don't you think?
Absolutely. And somewhere along the line, I think once a platform gathers popularity, I think it's the same in the field of journalism as well. There is this TRP race. You can't deny it. There are those channels who act holier than thou, say that, oh, we are not into TRP. Of course they are. Everyone is in a TRP race. Unless you're talking about BBC of the 60s and 70s, where it was mandated by the government that you have a role to play. And for example, like Doordarshan. But of course, it becomes a propaganda channel in our country. Of course, did you know, for example, that Indira Gandhi banned BBC for 2 years? Because they said something against her. So, and even BBC has a pronounced leftist tilt. As I said, most of the non-science fields have that. Your question pertains to the fact whether that should be allowed and why does that happen? That, Kushal, that simply happens because there's a human angle, human touch involved. You want something bigger. Now, let me give you an example. Just one example. You have a real nasty hit job filled with fake news of an article, printed, let us say, published in one of those pronounced left-wing platforms. If you ignore it, you probably get 10 eyeballs, right? Mm-hmm. But if you are incensed by it, and if some let's say some right-winger tweets and say, this is ridiculous, what crap it is, you immediately, so you give traction. It's all about traction. And the problem, when traction creeps into journalism, you can write any shit. In fact, it pays to write shit. Because if you're logical and sensible, maybe 10 people will read it. But if you're completely, off your rocker, 1 million people would read it. So that is the reason why you would compare, for example, an army general to General Dyer, or you would write all sorts of absolutely nonsensical things because that sells. That would give, so subjectivity gives eyeballs, objectivity doesn't. And that is, very rarely it does. But that period is gone. If you statistically were to see and divide the popular articles in all media, I'm saying, being wing agnostic, you would find that most of those articles are not just a reasoned critique. They're actually completely over the top with, insinuation, slander, vilification, and all sorts of things. And that is what sells. So platforms have decided that, and Twitter has decided it, that if we, for example, just to give you one example, so they block my account, and this is a very hypothetical thing. And for the next 10 days, so many people, I'm very grateful to them, they supported me and those things were trending. And in tens of thousands of tweets, the handle of Twitter was added. What it is doing is it's actually giving eyeballs to this handle Twitter. So even if as the adage goes, bad publicity is also good publicity. These guys have realized it, it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah. All right. So you use the words being completely off your rocker. So let's talk about something that has been off the rocker in the last few days. And obviously, famously, I'm embroiled in it too. But I think I think the nation wants to.
You're not satisfied कि तुम लोगों को गालियां पड़ी है, मुझे भी पड़वा लो गालियां, तुम आ जाओ.
ऐसा देख, वो उड़ रहा था तीर, तो मैंने तो पकड़ लिया उसको. फिर मैं बोला, अरे आनंद उधर बैठा हुआ, आनंद को भी बोलता हूँ, ये तीर ले आजा, साथ में मेरे तीर ले. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. So what are your views on the whole Kali Ma and atheism controversy? मतलब, what do you want to say? I want to hear your views out now.
So पहले तो ये है कि I'll get a lot of flack from our mutual friend Rahul Roshan because over the last 1.5 years, in fact, if you remember, 23rd May was it that Modi was elected for the second term? I think 23rd May. Yeah. And on 24th, I wrote an article in Op India saying that let the non-left fight, okay. और उसके बाद से जब भी लड़ाइयाँ होती हैं, मुझे बहुत गालियाँ पड़ती हैं कि साले तुमने कहा था कि लड़ो. But what I meant was that this is where left wing is archaic, because they don't want to fight for ideas. Every idea has to be fought and deliberated. It's like a competition. It's almost Darwinian in its nature.
Yeah.
Let the best ideas or the worst ideas, let all ideas compete, and whatever idea wins actually wins. So that was my thesis. Lekin people took it, और उसके बाद से जब भी लड़ाइयाँ हुई, बहुत होती हैं, right wingers fight, non-left people fight. तो उसमें मुझे वो मीम याद आता है, राजू का एक मीम है, वो बहुत आता है कि वो ऐसे करना है, हाँ ये कर लो पहले, लड़ लो.
Oh God.
So whenever this comes, that Raju thing is come, हाँ पहले लड़ लो, बाद में सब धर्म और वो सब की बात करना, पहले लड़ लो. But to come back to this, so this is something which is quite important, and I think it would help a lot of your viewers and audience if I were to talk in detail about a lot of aspects that are associated with this. But
Sure.
Before I do that, I can't quite remember the name of the guy. So can you just fill up on what actually the controversy is, because I don't want to go wrong in attributing things that might be misplaced.
Oh, so
what exactly was it about?
So the whole story is that these people, these ex-Muslims, were actually desecrating the Quran. So in that process, there was this one ex-Muslim who said a tweet that, oh, look at these right-wingers, they burnt the Quran and this has led to riots in Sweden. अभी उस ex-Muslim की हिंदुओं ने लेनी शुरू कर दी क्योंकि तू hypocrite है. उस ex-Muslim का नाम है Abdullah Samir. And let me tell you, he is a hypocrite for doing what he did. So because he had put up a photo of a Hindu goddess and said, I don't find anything obscene in it. And then this hypocrite is now justifying that, oh, why are you burning the Quran? Look, right-wingers are doing this and it is burning. So this guy got attacked, and then I don't know what has happened. Then it goes to this guy who runs this platform called Atheist Republic. His name is Armin Nawabi, and Atheist Republic is the largest social media platform of atheism, not just in America, in the world, by the way. It is in the world. They have the largest platform. So
sorry to interrupt. What's his quality? Is he a scientist, or is he
he's
someone from humanities? Or
I think
one of the things I'll also discuss is the various, who is the real atheist.
I think a humanities background, not a scientist. I don't think so. He's from a science background, but I don't know. So I'll keep my answer reserved on that one. But so he then picked up that photo and he made the comment, as everybody knows. And then wahan se shuru hua ye puri controversy, and I don't need to say the rest. You also know kya hua hai. So this is the entire story. So basically then it was about Armin Nawabi and Twitter Hindus. And the irony in all this is, let me tell you, everybody is after Armin Nawabi. Actually aag to Abdullah Samir ne lagai. So सब Armin Nawabi के पीछे पड़े हैं. मैं नहीं बोल रहा हूँ ना पढ़ो, आपकी चॉइस है, आपको जो करना करो. But this is the thing. So they put up a photo of Kalima, and he said, what's wrong in this? I think it's sexy, this, that, whatever they said. And then people found it offensive, and it just led to one thing, led to another. Then they start attacking his family. Then he ups the ante. Then he makes even more obscene tweets. They up the ante even more.
तुम लोग कहाँ से आ गए? मतलब तुम बीच में कहाँ से आ गए? You are a friend of this guy, or?
No, I know this guy. I've invited him once on the podcast. And the worst part is my tweet thread was actually disagreeing with him in my brain. I said Hindu gods and goddesses and Hindu religion portrays the entire pantheon of emotions. लोगों ने सिर्फ मैंने वो hot and sexy word क्यों लिखा उसको पकड़ लिया. मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं कि devotees look at the gods like that. मैं कह रहा हूं कि through the scriptures every bhav comes out, and I explained it. Now the problem is मेरे पीछे इसके लिए आए. हर्ष ने क्या लिखा कि he is a shock jock, he has his own value. Now I don't like when he does it to Hinduism, but if I have to look at it from a freedom of speech point of view, he's an equal opportunity offender. But let me tell you, I don't like when he does it to Hinduism. Now what did Harsh say? He did not say anything. अब कंचन दा ने तो कुछ नहीं बोला. कंचन दा ने बोला कि कोई हमारे भगवान की अगर निंदा करेगा हम हम उसको इग्नोर करेंगे. So, एक एक करके जो फ्री स्पीच सपोर्टर्स हैं और जिसमें तुम सबसे आगे हो, तो सबको गालियां पड़ी. अभी सबको पड़ गई हैं, तो ऐसा थोड़ा होता है. अभी तुम्हें पढ़नी चाहिए. अभी बोलो.
आ जाओ, ये कर लो पहले. No, so okay, so now I've understood what the whole thing is. Let's you go probably one by one, and I think the first thing that we must decide on is who is an atheist, who's a quote unquote proper atheist. मतलब बहुत सारे pretenders भी हैं, मतलब सारे communists जो हैं वो अपने आप को atheist कहते हैं. That's rubbish, you know. So I think it's only fair that if one calls himself or herself an atheist, one needs to provide an explanation for it. You know, I'm saying it's only fair. I'm not saying it's compulsory. You are free to call yourself anything you want. Yeah. But and the reason for that is that you can say that, look, I just consider myself as an atheist. You consider yourself as a believer. Now, the person who's believing has given you a reason why he's a believer, why he's not an atheist. He believes in God, he believes in divinity, he believes in spirituality, he believes in reincarnation, he believes in so many things that religion has endowed. And if you say, look, I don't believe in that, you have to give a rational explanation. Otherwise, you are also a believer. That is what my thinking is. So if somebody says, look, I'm an atheist, you can't just say, look, I'm an atheist because I feel like so. You can, but I mean, that's silly. So according to me, I think if an atheist or if a person says he's an atheist, you give a logical explanation. And a logical explanation in today's world, maybe 100, 200 years before that, you could say, yes, it's all right. You can call yourself an agnostic. But now if you say you're an atheist, it has to be based on scientific principles. Now, I know a lot of people would say, look, that's a Western lens of looking at it. No, that's a science, that's a human lens of looking at it. And I don't, I've always said कि मैं science की तरफ से हूँ, बाकी सारे किसी भी तरफ से हूँ, जो मेरे मन में आता है मैं वो कह देता हूँ, and that is based on what I believe are the scientific principles. So, you could, for example, say that you are an atheist because you believe in Darwinian evolution. Fair enough. But the point is, you must also realize that Darwin's theory wasn't absolutely settled. It is called a theory, right? And for 100 years, it's still called a theory, but I think that's an error because it has now become an axiom. That is, it is a fact. It is irrefutable, right? And that has happened only in the last 15, 20 years through the advent of molecular biology techniques. And I've said this before, genome sequencing has told you how we've all developed, from a single cell even before that. And then came stemma, or before that, was the, I forget, who's the guy? I'm sorry, I can't remember the angiogenesis. Miller, Stanley Miller, Stemmer, Zostack. So many people have contributed to this fact that now Darwin's theory is not a theory anymore, it's an axiom. And if you believe in that, and I do believe in that, and I add to that, for example, Hubble's experiment, that, basically the creation of the Big Bang, that is also irrefutable. Now, if you do that, that is a rational explanation that God, for me, does not exist. Because I've just given you two reasons. Because if God existed according to religion, he would be conducting so many miracles, starting from constructing this universe in 6 days, and, Earth is flat and Moon is split into two, and, people are walking on water, and so many things. The beginning, of course, is that God created man. Now, if I've given you a reasonable explanation that, look, that is not true according to me, then reasonably I can say, yes, rationally, I have logic to tell you that I'm an atheist. Now, if people don't provide that, then you are within your rights to go after those people and say, look, you're as good or as bad as a believer. So that's, according to me, that is what atheism is. And these communists, they're not atheists in that sense. That's why I've started adding this label to atheism, Darwinian atheist. I know it's not complete because then you have to explain also, what it is, but it's different from a communist atheist, believers in Stalin and Lysenko and all that, rubbish science, and they were not believers in Darwin to begin with. So that's that. Now let's come to this. So and I've already told you in the beginning that according to me, anybody who quote unquote blasphemes or says anything against any religion should not be arrested. So that is again my starting point. So we have two starting points now. I'm sorry if I'm blabbering, but I think it's important.
No.
Give the whole background. And मतलब डांट खाने से पहले ना अपना पूरा वो बना लो. ट्रोलिंग
और
से
अच्छा,
पहले
I just want to add one thing. Apparently, somebody has corrected me on the live chat. Army Nawabi is from a science background, molecular biology. Okay.
I see. All right. Well, I don't know what to say. He could have fooled me. But so let's come to the second stage now, which is about Hinduism and other religions. And I'm not a vidwan in that sense, right? So anything that I do, please don't take it as the ultimate truth. It's not. It's just my opinion. So I may be wrong. In fact, who was it who said, I would never, was it Bertrand Russell said, I would never die for my beliefs, I may be wrong. So I think that is also one of the things that I always carry in my pocket. So I believe Hinduism is different from all other religions. I think it is bigger than religion. In my sense, it is a way of life. And I've said this before, there's nothing new, that I believe that the religion component of Hinduism, of course it's there, is an offshoot of the way of life. Whereas in Islam, the way of life is an offshoot of the religion. Okay. And once you understand this distinction, you can see that which theology or way of life, religion would be amenable to change, because ways of life are always amenable to change. We have changed our ways of life, most rapidly, of course, in the last 50 years, but over the past millennia, centuries before, ways of life change. Religion doesn't. I mean, obviously, it's been consecrated in stone. So in Islam, you can't change even one full stop in Quran. What was said, what was written down, in 700 or 1300 years ago will always remain till eternity, because that has been told to be so. You can't change anything. So that's the third principle that I want to put. Now that we have established this, and we have established that anybody in his right can criticize any religion, I don't see any reason why the opposite should also not apply. I.e., that if you are a free speech absolutist, you are criticizing a religion, a god, a deity. Why shouldn't you also be criticized or abused? Now, just to give you one example, and there are many from my distant family who are absolute worshippers of their own gods, like millions of Hindus are, so many other people are. And by absolute, I mean absolute. The day begins and, the day ends, and during that time, all they are thinking of or what they're doing is they are saying that we are doing it because God has allowed us to do this, the prayers and everything. So it is but natural that so many Indian gods or Hindu gods, they think of them as divine. So in the sense that they put them on a pedestal. Of course, being God, you do it like that, but it is something more than just divinity. It is obsession. Now, when you insult someone who is obsessed with, let us take the example out here of goddess Kali. Many people say that, look, this is it is one of the crores of gods. What is the harm in that? But you tell that to the guy who is so obsessed in considering goddess Kali as supreme, divine. Everything that I'm doing on earth is because of her. You know what I mean? It's just complete obsession. And when you insult, quote unquote, again insult what you consider, you are in your rights to, if you accept that as coming from a status of absolute freedom of expression, then I believe that the person who has said things that have offended you should also be able to accept things that he or she considers as divine or is obsessed with it. So, starting, I think it is wrong for people to object, for him, I forget his name again, Nawabi, to object or take umbrage when somebody is insulting people who he feels, maybe dead or alive, are so close to him, when he himself is objecting or abusing or slandering or whatever you may call it, offending people, goddesses who are so close to people. So, for example, if somebody considers goddess Kali as his or her mother, you insult, you say some things. You should, when you do that, you should also be ready, okay, to be able to take the abuses against people who you consider maybe literally, or your mothers, or people who you're obsessed with. Now, okay, so this is the starting logic, but of course there is a caveat in this, because there is this, I would call it, is absurdism. Absurd has been it's a philosophical connotation. In colloquial term, you may say absurd means it's silly, stupid. No, this is absurd logic because if I were to now, I'm really talking as a bunch of cells. बहुत गालियां पड़ने वाली हैं, तो तब तैयार रहना. But the point is, if I'm looking at something which is so completely, I'm looking at an angle, I'm completely detached from it. So A, I don't have a skin in the game because I'm not religious, and B, over and above that, I'm looking at it something which is something ruthlessly objectively. And the reason why I say it's absurd is that comparison you're making between someone who thinks God is his mother and the other person has his own flesh and blood mother. So it is I believe that logic is absurd because tomorrow you may say that, look, I believe this stone is God and I'm absolutely obsessed with it, and you abused it. It is the same as so you should not take umbrage if I abuse your mother. I don't know whether you're able to see the distinction there.
I know what you're talking about.
It's a slight distinction, but it does not take away from the fact that people who profess absolute freedom of speech should be able to take abuses like that. So I'm actually surprised and disappointed that he started, maybe I don't know the whole story, if he was playing victim by saying that, look, you don't abuse my mother and all that.
He didn't say you don't abuse my mother. He was just quote tweeting and telling people that look what they've come down to. Well,
in a way that,
yeah,
in a way he was angry and sad and playing victim. If he is doing that, if the moment if he says otherwise, you put a rider saying, look, guys, I don't mind. And let me tell you a fact, Kushal, that on Twitter, on social media, you have to take a lot of shit. You have to be prepared for it. And, mostly you can ignore it. But you can also fish out the abuses and quote tweet and, then those, you give attention. And then in a way, you're also seeking attention. Because if you're giving attention to a troll, you're also seeking attention from a lot of your followers who are going to abuse that troll. So you are actually elevating yourself. This is a competition that's going on. By the way, I've been abused a lot. I've never talked about it. I can't remember an instance where I've quote tweeted somebody who's abused me, but I'll tell you, during demonetization and my objection to it, I wrote 5 articles, more than 10,000 words, and all rationally defining why my objections are to demonetization. And for a month and a half, I was viciously abused. In fact, Yogini would stand testament. She came to my defense once when people were abusing my late parents and my wife and photo. And all that stuff was going on. But, if you are a free speech absolutist, then you should be able to take it. So that is the 4th point that we have discussed. Now let's come to the final 2 points, which is a lot of articles have been written. I think I've just read dear Nupur's article on Op India. I do disagree a lot with what she said, but I think it's great that she's written it. So there is this view that, when we see things through a Western lens, we make the error of false equivalence. I think there's something to be said about that, but I think what a lot of us have started doing is unnecessarily denigrating a Western lens. I don't know what that Western lens is. Of course, if you're really ignorant Westerner, then you might be looking at things, about India and Hinduism through your lens. But why would you presuppose that every Westerner is ignorant? And every view that comes out of it, every advancement of, let's face it, we were great in science and mathematics and everything, but over the last 400-500 years, the real renaissance in science has actually come from the West. Of course, it has been buttressed by colonialism. So, as I say, if Newton looked further, he did not stand on the shoulder of giants to look further in science. He stood on the shoulders of colonials who actually annihilated vast populations, made his land richer, so that he didn't have to worry about 2 square meals and he could concentrate on doing science. If India was as rich as Britain for the last 400-500 years, we would have had as many, if not more, discoveries. So everything is, everything is connected. So let's not denigrate West or Western lens as that everyone in the West or everyone who professes a scientific point of view, not necessarily, and scientific points of view need not necessarily be Western point of views or Western science point of view. It is science. It is in front of you. Reproducible evidence is in front of you. It's not that just because West has done it, it is Western lens. No, it is scientific lens.
Yeah.
And a lot of Indians do believe in that. So I think that that connection also is a bit thin. Then finally, there is this view that that Hindus consider their gods as sacred, and so any obsession or a sexual nature is objectification. Now, this objectification, frankly, is something that is used a lot, and it can. I'm not denying it that it happens. Of course, it happens, but it can also be infatuation, obsession. You may wrongly club it as objectification, and I'm not qualified enough to give you instances in Hindu Puranas and Hindu scriptures where bhakts have been so obsessed and infatuated, of a nature which is beyond divinity, or looking at their gods and goddesses as, just deities. I don't know, so I'm not fit enough to comment on that. But I'm saying, please do not discard that that may also happen. That you may think of your god being so obsessed with it, in love with it, that you are not going to deny feelings that are other than objectification. Why deny that thing? So that I think in that view is also a little bit thin. Finally, and which also comes out from what Nupur has written in her thing, which I feel is really thin, and this is the last point I'm going to make on this, is this view that Hindus can support desecration of Islam because Islam has oppressed and continues to oppress, while Hinduism doesn't. So I think that is also thin, because you are looking at it from an eye of a Hindu who is completely ignoring 2,000 years of discrimination through Hindu religion / way of life. Now, it's so tightly intertwined in the last 2,000 years, very difficult to separate them. But are you saying that Hinduism as a religion or as a way of life did not oppress, did not discriminate? That is completely wrong. So otherwise, you give me a reason why Ambedkar wanted to burn Manusmriti.
Yes.
You are denying people who were oppressed for thousands of years through Hindu scriptures. Now, there again a distinction needs to be made, and I've written about this, that 2,000 years before, there was a vigorous mixing between all Indian populations, ANI, ASI, whatever, and then came Manusmriti, and population genetics also has shown this, and then endogamy started. But can you deny that it started? I mean, can you deny that there has been discrimination, there has been oppression, caste-based or non-caste-based, or if you want to go through the faulty logic of Mahatma Gandhi of hereditary varna, also the basic point is that Hinduism has also oppressed, right, for thousands of years. You want to put a date to it? I can't exactly put a date to it, but it is not. Yes, it has oppressed less than other religions, but tell that to the guy who has been oppressed.
Yeah.
So there again, a privilege comes to it. So out of ignorance or out of cushioning the oppression of Hinduism, I think it's not right. If you want to be completely detached and objective about it, all religions have oppressed. In Hinduism, religion / way of life has oppressed. So if a Hindu is supporting desecration of Quran or Islam because he doesn't agree with some verses there, and he says that, look, this is oppressing, you can't turn around and say, look, Hinduism isn't oppressing. You talk to the guy who's been oppressed by Hinduism. Talk to Ambedkar, talk to a lot of people, Dalits. They would have a totally different story. You got to accept that. You can't just ignore, your thing. Finally, I would like to say, all these the fourth point is that, there's this guy called, who's the finance minister of Kerala. He's a communist, Thomas Isaac, I think. So he said, happy Onam, and, Vishnu or Vamana, he cheated. We're not celebrating that. It's complete ignorance. So I tweeted, and that tweet went viral. I said, look at this profound ignorance, or I said, such profound ignorance about Hindu mythology and canon can only come from someone who's a communist and who belongs to a cult that has killed 100 million people. So there, a lot of people took umbrage to my saying Hindu mythology. A lot of comments, some of them very angry, some of them not so angry, but hundreds of comments were, no, this is not mythology, this is history. अब इसमें मैं अगर ट्विटर में रिस्पॉन्स करता तो वो पूरा शुरू हो जाता, हाँ पहले ये कर लो, पहले So I think this is right time if I can just elaborate why I called it Hindu mythology. So I don't mind people calling it history. Okay, and the history being that Vamana, he put his foot on, it was Bali and Vamana, and he put his foot on the three domains, he put his foot on the earth and everything, and people believe that as history. People also believe that, Prophet in Islam, he took his last journey on a winged mule. They believe that. People believe that Jesus walked on water, he turned water to wine and so many things. They say it is history. Now, am I going to fight with them? No, I don't. But please don't force me to think that is history, right? Because if I believe according to my thinking, rational scientific thinking, you may disagree with it. I don't deny your right to abuse me or disagree with it. But I don't believe in reincarnation. I don't believe that somebody can put his one foot on the whole earth. I don't believe it. So it is, according to me, it is not a historical fact. It is mythology. So many things, miracles and everything. It's wonderful. It is literature. Religion is literature. It's wonderful. But according to me, these facts and other things are mythology. So a lot of people think that's history. Aapko sochna hai, aap socho, perfectly all right. I have never demeaned or disagreed with, or abused someone who believes in religion. But I'm saying that you can abuse me for not believing in that. Fair enough. But I'm just giving you the reasons why I believe that is mythology. Now, somebody say, well, if you believe that is mythology, then what right do you have in correcting Thomas Isaac? Because mythology mein anything goes. Yeah, mythology ke bhi wo hai, for example, mythology mein, according to me, the mythology is you have Dashavatars. Now, if somebody says, nahi, Dashavatara nahi hai, 20 avatars. So obviously, you're not going by the established Hindu mythology. So if tomorrow somebody says that, look, this is because it is mythology, anything goes, no, that's also wrong. So you can't just say that, no, according to me, because you're saying it is mythology, I can say tomorrow that there are 20 avatars of Vishnu. Well, they're established Dashavatars, so let's go with that. If you can prove to me there are 20 avatars, then you go with that. So I hope I've clarified the situation on this. I took rather a long time. Thank you for withstanding that. But
it's very important to clarify these things. And here's my thing. I think another point that we need to understand, and I have one more question to ask after that too, and then we'll take the live viewers' questions because there are too many they're asking. So, there's often this point raised that, why should atheists comment on religion? They have no skin in the game. I have never understood this mindset. Actually, everybody has skin in the game, and hear me out, and then I want to hear your views too. Because religion is an all-encompassing system that actually influences every single aspect of society in a way that, your cultural zeitgeist is influenced by religion. Otherwise, if religion does not influence your societal reality, why would the directive principles of the constitution say cow slaughter is should be banned? It is religion interfering. So to say that as an atheist, why do you comment on religion, or as a disbeliever, or as an agnostic, or as a skeptic, or as I call myself as a Cārvāka, why do you comment on other things? अरे बाबा करेंगे ना, हमारी लाइफ अफेक्ट होती है उससे, हर आदमी की होती है. To say that you have no skin in the game, well then if that logic is there, then don't comment on anything, because if you are not from that field, so if I am like a clerk in an office, then I should only have skin in the game and clerk kiri. I cannot talk about anything else. So that's not fair, right? Or what are your views on that?
No, I completely agree with you. And in fact, I would say, I would go a little bit further. You are absolutely right that religion, we are prisoners of religion. We are prisoners of religious diktats. We are prisoners of, things that are, to give you one example, in 2011 census, and this is something that really shocked me and has forever shocked me. In the 2011 census, it came out that 155 million, let me repeat that, 155 million Indian infants aged 1 to 3 were classified as Hindu, Muslim, Sikh and Isai. Can you believe it? Now, if you talk, did the census lady or the census man knock on the door and accost an infant, crying infant in diapers 1 to 3 and ask, are you a Hindu? Are you? So the fact is that religion is thrust upon you. You don't have time And I don't know, frankly, of very many Muslims who would, when they reach an age beyond being an impressionable age or adolescence, they would forsake their religion. I can't. I mean, 200 million Muslims, maybe a handful would say, I don't want to be a Muslim anymore. It's very difficult in their religion because obviously the punishment for apostasy is death. So, there cannot be any catharsis in that sense. But even amongst Hindus, majority still remain Hindus. Of course, a lot of them are converted and, through what you call them, coercion and, giving a lot of incentives and all that stuff. It's a different matter. I'm talking of spiritually, philosophically, if you believe in one religion and you are trained to believe in that religion for 10, 15 years, formative years of your life, I dare say very few would change that, right? And that is obviously minuscule in Islam. That is also not very many in Hinduism. So you could turn into an atheist if you're Christian or a Hindu or something. In Muslims, it's very, very rare. Now, if that is the case, that means you see the hold religion has on you. मतलब यही नहीं कि state भी आप पे laws वो लगा रहा है जो कि in many cases, I've said half a dozen constitutional amendments and directive principles are religious in nature. So we are actually not secular. We haven't dissociated religion with the state. So we are not secular in that sense. For a start, billions of dollars are taken from Hindu temples. The state gets it. So, if you're secular, then you won't do that for a start. But in any sense, there are many directive principles. There are constitutional amendments that that have imbibed religious diktats or natures in them. So, as an atheist, as someone who doesn't belong to, doesn't believe in religion or believes in some other religion, of course, the skin in the game is there because you're being affected by it. Yeah. If tomorrow in Bengal, there was a case, right, 2 months ago that there is a diktat of Sharia laws, I can't quite remember. But there would be, for example, in Pakistan, if you take an atheist. Now, tomorrow, like Zia brought in hudud ordinances. So, of course, his life was affected. Why should he not talk about it? So, of course, you have a skin in the game.
Yeah, and just to prove it with an example, I'll give you a beautiful excerpt of Savarkar's life, and it's from Vikram Sampath's book, brilliant book. Buy it, guys. Yes. So, absolutely. Yeah, so it's beautiful how Savarkar was being told by his fellow Brahmins at that time that, oh my God, ship में नहीं बैठना होता है, शास्त्रों में लिखा है ship में नहीं बैठना होता है, so उधर मत जाना ship में पढ़ाई करने, because at that time that was the only route, right? If you have to sit on a ship. So imagine, Savarkar was a disbeliever. Savarkar had no skin in the game, but skin in the game हो गया ना, उसको तो पढ़ने भी नहीं जाने दे रहे थे वो लोग. So the point is that to say that how does religion affect your life, यार हगना मुझे हर चीज में तो आपके वो affect करता है आपको यार. How do you, I mean, imagine how Islam is, वो वुजू के भी rules है यार. शुक्र है हिंदुइज्म ये नहीं करता है, मगर वुजू के भी rules है इस्लाम में.
No, you see here, it's a great example that you have taken, which is that people told don't cross the ocean, and that is in South Indian Brahmin. In fact, Ramanujam also faced the same quandary when he was to go to Cambridge. You can't cross the oceans, you'll be impure and all that stuff. So exactly what I said, it's a way of life. If religion is an offshoot of a way of life, you can still change it, right? But if it is concentrated or consecrated, I beg your pardon, by God, that look, this is a law, you will find it almost impossible to change it. And I've written on it that if you change it, if you don't believe it, then you are not a true Muslim. You are a bad Muslim according to that definition. So there are a lot of Muslims who don't believe in a lot of verses of Quran. They're silent about it. They're not, but they believe that they are true Muslims. I'm sorry, you're not. So, but chalta.
Yeah. So one last question before I start taking the live.
I wanted to say this. I think I was thinking about this just this morning. I would broach this topic in a very almost satirical, sarcastic way, and I hope Rahul Roshan is listening to this. So about all this, last 2-3 days that has been going on, I think maybe Rahul can spearhead this thing that we should have a caste agnostic, region agnostic, language agnostic, even religion agnostic Varna system for Twitters if they want to protect dharma. So for example, let there be Twitter warriors, okay? जब भी धर्मा पे danger आएगा, उनको आगे बढ़ाओ. जैसे वो तुम लोगों को गालियां दे रहे थे, नहीं, let you guys be, so like those forced, one would be professing only wisdom, reading. Let you guys be in that slot. तुम्हें जो क्रिटिसाइज करना है करना, लेकिन जब धर्म की वो आएगी, डेंजर में होगा, तुम लोग अपना धोती वोती पहन के जैसे हम लोग करते थे बिस्तर के नीचे छुप जाओगे, वॉरियर्स आगे आएंगे. ओके, so let that be the case. Let Rahul profess this kind of a varna system for Hindus, who want to protect Hindu dharma. So you have these fighters, and it's caste agnostic, by the way. So I'm not saying only if the Kshatriyas real Hindu warriors would be the Kshatriyas. No, it's caste, even religion agnostic. Let me put it that way. If you want to protect dharma, if you think Hindu civilization has got nothing to do with Hinduism, and even a Muslim in in India, in Hindustan is Hindu, in culturally Hindu, then sure, you are also welcome to do. Let there be a sect that is only professing business ki हाँ भाई जो बोलना है बोलो, हमें ट्विटर पे धंधा चलाना है, हम वो चलाएंगे. ओके, सो आई थिंक टाइम ये आ गया है कि जैसे तुम लोगों को बहुत गालियां पड़ी हैं, जो वॉरियर्स ने गालियां दी हैं, वो तुम लोगों को छोड़ दें कि हाँ यार इसको जो है ना बकवास करने तो, ये पढ़ाएगा, ये पढ़ेगा, इसको जो करना है कर लें दो, ये हमें बचा नहीं सकता. लेकिन ये भाई पुराने जमाने में क्या होता था, Brahmins did not go to fight the war, right? So Shivaji did, or Kshatriyas did, and I'm just saying. So they were left to do what they were left to do. So this is a proposal to Rahul. Help Rahul at the rate of ICICI. वो तभी मैं वो prescribe करूँगा when you make this rule, a Varna system for protecting Twitter. Basically Varna system for tuples to protect dharma. ताकि बार बार तुम लोगों को गालियां ना पड़े.
राहुल रोशन, अगर तू सुन रहा है तो देख ले, नहीं तो मैं राहुल को बाद में व्हाट्सएप कर दूंगा. ठीक है. अच्छा, one last question, then we'll take the viewers' question. So,
sure.
Who has opened your eyes in recent times?
Okay, so that's a difficult question to answer. And I'm going to not talk about the science domain, because let's keep that away. But in terms of non-scientific domains, I think if I have to name two people out of thousands who've helped me and inspired me in that sense, opened my eyes, I think the first one has to be, there's a guy called Media Crooks. I think he's still there, Ravi Narayan. So in 2009, 2008, he's the boss. So he actually opened my eyes, because at that point of time, after having done only reading, I started to go into writing. I used to wait for his blogs, like, I used to wait for newspapers in the morning. और कभी नहीं आया तो गुस्सा होता था कि नहीं, and he's absolute legend. Of course, he's abused me a lot, but you think the thing is, you need to recognize the quality of a man who's just giving you so much, right, without expecting anything. And I love that in people. So he was one such person. He completely opened my eyes in the way you look at media, and he was absolute trendsetter in that sense. And one was Broken Windows. I remember that. He wrote on Nirbhaya, he wrote that. And the other one was, I think, on the day Modi won in 2014, or was a day before that, was called Arrival. Absolute legend. And I would call such people as impossible diamonds. They cannot be bought. They cannot be. I do agree that, the more you are in the domain, non-scientific domain, if you want to call it that, you can't but not make friends, right? You can't but not have associations that make it very difficult for you to detach yourself, right? Otherwise, you'll be a hypocrite. You would, if you want to call it that, favor is a very negative word connotation, but you would help people out. You would be quiet when your friend does something wrong. You would not criticize that person. You would, so many things. And it starts to happen automatically. But there are very few people, I can't think of 4 or 5 in human history, who are what I call impossible diamonds. Unko kuch farak hi nahi padta, wo apne zone mein hote hain, right? So even if your dearest friend does something wrong, they will say, look, they will say, this is wrong. You can't do this. And Pasolini was a very famous film director. He was like that. Few other people are like that. I dare say Mahatma Gandhi was like that. I'm no fan of, the other day somebody was saying I eulogize Gandhi, but yeah, very pin tweet dekh. But the fact is that one thing I admire about Gandhi is that no other man I know in recent history has written 100 volumes about anything that came to him in his mind. Anything. So he was completely open, and that is something you really acknowledge. You have to be great to do that. You have to be in a zone. You have to be an impossible diamond. I'll give you one example. Somebody. So Gandhiji was told Raja Gopalachari, who Gandhi said is my conscience, and I can't remember the exact thing. He said, "Look, I'm going to sleep naked with my niece." And Rajaji was saying, "Oh bloody hell, what the hell? Gandhiji, please don't do this." He said, "No, I'm going to do this." Rajaji said nobody had the courage. Very few people had the courage to say, "No, you won't do this." I said, "Okay, do it." But Gandhi said, "But I don't want to do it secretly. Let me write about it and take the opinion of my followers." So Raja said, "Oh my God, Gandhiji, please do it. Please don't write about it. Please. आपको जो करना है आप अपने उसमें करो, लिखो मत." Gandhi said, "No, I'm going to write about it." And he did. He wrote about this. Should I do this? I'm going to do this. What is your... That is entering a zone where you've detached yourself from all human associations. I really respect that. So someone who opened my eyes is, I would say, Media Crooks in that sense. And he remains that. It's absolutely sterling. I don't know of anyone in the Indian media space who has been that detached. Much to the ire of everyone, I would say, who's associated with him, because sabne gali khai. The second person is much easier to remember, is of course True Indology, and the man is a legend. What can I say? I think he has totally opened the eyes of so many people. So many people are after him because of that. And they hate him, they slander him. So many non-left people also jealous, envious, or whatever. And in fact, I wrote about this, that I was so agog by the facts he's bringing out and his assertions. His assertions are like, those 10 commandments. Like, there exists nothing in Puranas that can disprove me. I challenge anyone to bring me one shloka. Aapne sara padh liya, kuch to hoga, that is kind of, that disproves you. So once he said, I challenge anyone to bring me any assertion that says that Hitler called this bent hooked cross as swastika. Hitler never used the word swastika. Now, yaar, पूरी जिंदगी बीत गई, हमने 20-30 साल से यही सुना है कि bloody the Nazi symbol is swastika, Hitler used it, called it swastika. मैंने कहा ये नहीं हो सकता, कुछ भी हो जाए, I have to search and disprove True Indology. And so I took the help of a couple of friends, and we searched through his original German speeches, Hitler. And believe me, it's very difficult, because in the English speeches, Hitler is professed to have said swastika, quoted also swastika. But original German can you believe it? We must have gone through hundreds of his speeches. Very difficult to get. I don't even remember all those links where I got it from, and we went into, I don't know, got one link to another and all that. But we finally searched about 100 odd, even more of his German speeches. Not once has he used the word swastika. Us din se maine maan liya ki boss, this guy is something else. Now, I don't know whether he did the same search that we did, but the fact remains that his assertion is correct. And he has opened the eyes of, God, to so many people. And I've said this before, I don't retweet, I don't make his tweets remain on my timeline for more than a day, because I get so angry. This guy should be in charge. This guy should have been snapped up by the government and should have been asked to change the curriculum. So that the other day he brought out the fact that Ashoka was already a Buddhist before the Kalinga War. Of course, I had heard it before, I had read it before from Sanjeev Sanyal's book. But, things like that, they just come out, and it's just absolutely astonishing. The kind of knowledge he has and that he professes. And another thing I would say, I have changed my mind. 2 years ago, I said, look, and I've tweeted about this as well. I said, look, True Indology, man, put all your efforts in writing a book. Please write a book. Believe me, now I've changed my view. उसको किताब लिखनी है, नहीं लिखनी है, 10 साल बाद लिखे. And Vikram also said, people who love true Indology, they say, please write a book, sir. Please. Vikram also said this. Spend your energies. I am totally against it, because book में आप क्या करोगे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा? 10 लोगों को 10 known historical facts, distorted facts को disprove करोगे. यहाँ वो हर रोज 10 लोगों को कर रहा है. Now, which is more important? True Indology can write a book that can give you true facts on Tipu Sultan, Aurangzeb, this, that, but can he forever be editing that book or bringing new things on that book every day, which is what he's doing? Basically putting to dust all those fake narratives on history, that 10, 12 of them every day. So I've changed my view. I think he should, if he thinks about writing a book, let him do that, but he must continue this. I think it is something which is a treasure. And it's a real pity that not only our government, but so many other people who want to learn are jealous of him, of what he does. I think he's tweeted his photograph. He's probably a young kid, 18, 20. It's just remarkable. So I think out of hundreds, I would say, I know it is the whole spectrum, but I would say media crooks and true Indology. They've opened my eyes, literally.
Great. Chalo, now I'm going to start taking the audience questions. So I'll start from the top. And
Gosh, it's been an hour. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take it. So somebody has asked, why are Indians obsessed with this revivalism in India to hold on to a glorious past rather than embracing the world as a global civilization? Do you think Indians are like that?
I think a lot of Indians, the way colonial mind thinks, it is that they have gone in the other direction. So what they've done is, they might not be glorifying our past, but they're hiding. Our past has been hidden. So many. And to give you just one example, then I'm the forthcoming book, Forgotten Scientists, we have forgotten such tremendous advancements that we had made in the field of science, what to talk of history and philosophy and, So is it not right for us? Is it not proper for us to at least bring it on the table? You may discard it. You may still say, look, this is still rubbish. But I think we owe it. And, for example, Fibonacci series, just to give you one, again, true Indology. He brought this out. That बाकी सब लोग उसको Fibonacci series कहते हैं. Bloody Fibonacci की अपनी किताब में उसने लिखा कि भैया ये Indian, this is Indian series. Did we know this? Did I know this? No, I didn't. लोग कहते हैं Newton discovered gravity. This is wrong. Indian discovered. Brahmagupta, was it, who discovered gravity? Or in whatever you may want to call it. So why shouldn't these facts be brought out? I mean, is it something that is it Sanghi? Is it Hindutva? Yeah, aapko jo kehna hai aap kehna. But I think this government, this silly government, is overawed and has inferiority complex in that sense, that it is worried. It doesn't want to change, stay where he says, ek comma nahi badla hai. Sharam kar lo.
Yeah, and I agree. I think no society can build without knowing their past. So India ki problem ye rahi hai ki when it comes to Indians, right? There are bad things in our past. There are good things in our past. Like people, I'll give you my own case. Like people every time tell me, how do you live your life? I was like, I live my life on the principles of Krishna's Nishkam Karma. He's like, but you don't think so? Krishna is divine. I was like, philosophy mein divinity kahan se aa gayi bhai? I was like, why can't I learn the philosophy of Krishna? Why can't I learn the Niti of Vidur? Why can't I learn Bhishma's lesson in the Mahabharata when he's lying on the bed of arrows? I was like, are you guys crazy? There is so much to learn. Why can't I learn from Plato? Why can't I learn from Aristotle? And if I don't study the past, I can't live my life ahead. So I kind of agree with you that you can never ignore the past and there is no harm in accepting the past. But I guess what the questioner was trying to say is that this supremacism should not come in, and that I agree with. We should never have a supremacist attitude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that I agree with. So,
I have said this before. I believe I'm a bunch of cells, right? We are here through, my belief is through complete chance. And I'm an Ethiopian by heart and mind. Okay, my ancestor, if you were to call it, was Lucy, 3.5 million years old. But I have to also add this, Kushal, that not only we must make our generation learn about the great things about India, but at least we also should make them unlearn about the wrong things that they have learned, and then give them a choice, so bring into college curriculum this book called The Black Book of Communism, okay? Demand that this be one of the books. लोगों को पता तो चले सच क्या है. अभी भी शे गवारा के पोस्टर चिपका के घूम रहे हैं, शे गवारा की टी शर्ट, अरे ब्लडी होमोफोबिक मास मर्डरर को यहाँ लगा रखा है, माओ को पूछते हैं, ठीक है, जिसने 63 मिलियन अपने ही लोगों को मारा है, पोल पॉट, कास्ट्रो, people are still besotted by these figures. So unlearn this, or at least learn the truth about it. Then you want to be a communist, bana yaar, हम थोड़ा रोक रहे.
Yeah, that's true. So
as I say, nations weaken not because of their past, but rather by how they're taught it.
Yep, I agree with you, Anand. So Shantanu has said many atheists think that religion should end as it produces illogical and irrational dogmas that always lead to chaos. Should this be the case today? And he also says belated Happy Teachers Day to both of you.
Thank you very much. No, I think, look, if religion, okay, how shall I put it? Of course, it is dictatorial. It has diktats in that sense. You may call it many aspects, many religions totalitarian in their nature. Of course, they are. But I don't see it ending. And the reason for that is that there obviously is a reason. There is a human yearning, okay, to believe in God. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there, right? And I think that yearning is a lot to do. We haven't delved really deep into it scientifically, I'm saying, but maybe a mix of fear, a mix of wanting some, just this belief that you're not alone, you have someone to hold your hand, or just believe that, maybe a belief in humility for a start. Religion teaches you humility, that somebody is always greater than you are, bigger than you are. So it has a lot of good aspects in that sense, in what it makes a human do. It has a lot of wrong things that it makes a human do. But that is dependent upon humans, right? So when you make rules in your constitutions that are based on religion, then, as Kushal, you were saying, we have a skin in the game. But let's say you didn't. Why should it matter then? आपको पढ़ना, आपकी जो philosophy है, आपको जो profess करता है, आप वो करो. So I'm not a militant atheist like a lot of Western atheists are. कि नहीं, let me demolish religion in that sense. I abuse, slander your God. No, I'm not like that, because as a scientist, I know that there are so many streams that people believe in that you don't believe in, and it would be madness to go around telling each one of us, look, you are wrong, I am right, change. No, it's a free country. Bring everything on the table. If you want to worship someone, you're free to worship him or her.
Yeah.
So religion will be there.
Yeah, and not only that, just one last line, and then we'll go to the next question. Religion can't go, because you know what happened in the West, right? They smashed religion. Guess what came back? Religion, wokeism. It just doesn't go. Human beings cling on to ideas because post-agricultural societies need something to live by, right? You need a set of rules, right? What is religion? At the end of the day, a set of rules. You can remove the God, but not the religious tendency, right? I mean, you know it more than anyone else.
Yeah, but I think there I would say it has a lot to do with what you teach. For example, just to give you this example that I gave 10 minutes ago. If in the curriculum are the facts about communism, right? Are the facts about Tipu Sultan, facts about Aurangzeb, then you have to be a complete blithering idiot to, after having read those facts, to still believe in them, right? But the majority of people would, I dare say, would not, because human tendency is possibly to be sensible. यार मतलब आप 2 बार गलत हो गए, 3 बार गलत हो गए, आप हर जगह पढ़ रहे हो कि यार this Mao was a criminal who killed 63 million people. So of course there are neo-Nazis, right? They still worship Hitler. But out of 100% of people who've been exposed to the truth about Hitler, how many people still cling on to Hitler, right? It's not the majority. It's maybe 5%, maybe even less than that. What does that tell you? Because you brought out the facts about Hitler, you allowed people to make a choice whether we worship Hitler or whether we condemn him or we worship him. And they chose the former, right? Now, why can't you do that about everyone, about all world figures, including your goddamn Che Guevara and Mao and Stalin? Why can't you do that? So I fault our education system. Wokeism कहाँ से आ रही है, आप ये बताइए. Wokeism का अगर आप पीछे का पढ़े, ये पूरा woke का ये जो culture है, this has cultural Marxism, as one of the foundation stones for this wokeism.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So एक comment को पढ़ना पड़ रहा है. So at least 20 people have written this. इसके लिए पढ़ रहा हूँ.
मुझे
रंगा जी,
गालियां पढ़ रही है कि नहीं, मुझे गालियां पढ़ रही है कि नहीं, मुझे ये बता.
गालियां नहीं पढ़ रहे सरप्राइजिंगली. मैं तेरे को बोलता हूँ मेरी पॉडकास्ट पे
Thank
मतलब डिसेंट लोग आते हैं, मगर ये सब लोग बोल रहे हैं कि रंगा जी प्लीज कम मोर ऑफन ऑन कुशल्स पॉडकास्ट, यू गेट अ लॉट मोर देन 2 minutes to speak.
Okay, let me tell you, in fact, when you talked about half an hour ago about skin in the game, you also said कि अरे भाई हर टॉपिक पे आप बोल रहे हो. I get this a lot of time, कि साले साइंटिस्ट हो, साइंस करो चुपचाप बैठ के. अरे भाई साइंस भी करता हूँ, 9 से 6 साइंस कर रहा हूँ, लैब चल रही है, पब्लिकेशंस आ रही हैं. बट why do you deny me the opportunity if I want to learn about other topics, other areas, and I want to profess my views? I think it's only right. So don't, you can deride, you can critique my views on various subjects, but don't say that you should not profess views on various subjects. If you don't agree with me on what I've talked about, in some field which is non-scientific, absolutely come and badger me and bludgeon my views. But don't say that, look, you're not an expert in this. Don't. Of course, I'm not an expert, and let me say what I want to. You can disagree with my views, of course, absolutely, please do. And the question that you asked was about this 2-minute thing. I'll be very honest with you. I really envy poets. I really do, because I think the essence of literature, the essence of philosophy, is to be able to condense, not to expand. Anybody can write 10 pages on anything, right? And somewhere in that middle of those 10 pages, you would find 2 lines, right, that were great, that were the core. But very few people, and that's why I love poets, and I'm envious of them, because I'm not one. They are able to condense. To condense is so much more invigorating, thrilling, and on a higher pedestal than to expand. So when I get this 2 minutes to talk, so I can talk for 10 minutes, 1 hour, whatever, it's easier in that way. To condense something in 2 minutes, starting point, finishing point, a bit of bluster, a bit of one-liners thrown in, bit of aphorisms, thoda sa bombast, thoda sa ye, thoda sa wo. I take it as a challenge, So that 2-minute clip is a challenge for me. Am I rather than giving a 1-hour speech, am I able to condense that in 2 minutes? So that is why I love this format, And things are changing, Kushal. Believe me, 10 years from now, people won't be reading any books, Everything is changing towards, so video killed the radio stars, they said. Video has killed everything,
Yeah.
But it's not to deride this format. It is to bring a lot of stuff too, positive stuff to this format. If in those 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, you can condense a lot of things, information, literature, science, whatever you may do it. Why is it bad? It's not.
So just I'm going to read a few comments now. So somebody's like, we should stop knee-jerk reactions for everything, because bad publicity is still publicity. When GTA was released, the company that made it created an artificial controversy that the game is too violent. So basically, I think they're talking about the Kali controversy, that you should be more careful what you do. Somebody else has also said that it is the intensive rage on social media also superficial fight back to defend dharma from the helpless nostalgia invasions. Actually, that's a very good point कि लोगों को लग रहा है कि वो लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं बहुत, मगर रियलिटी में है क्या, 4 करोड़ लोग तो हैं टोटल इंडिया में ट्विटर पे. So so I'm just telling you the thoughts of the people. Somebody has said even non-religious societies have blasphemy. You have to be to bring the weakest, the oldest, and the infirm along in society when nature doesn't care. That's a good thing. Okay, one question now. Can the Hindu way of life have any chance of survival against well-funded, institutionalized, violent, and proselytizing faiths and ideologies unless Hindus organize under a single banner with agreed priorities?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I think
very good question.
If you want to tackle it sensibly, which is completely rationally, I would say if India remains poor, or to the extent of poverty that we have, there is very little chance. Because the fact of the matter is, somebody is completely emaciated, dying, their family members already dead, malnutrition. Somebody comes and tells you, look, we are giving you this bag of rice, right? But you convert to Christianity. Who in his right mind, wouldn't? And B, who in his right mind would mind somebody converting. Would you, for example, Kushal, if you are poor, your family is dying, if somebody gives you one bag of rice and says you become a Christian, I'll give you this. Why should I mind? Am I helping you? Am I making you survive? Am I, by saying that no, remain Hindu, okay, you're going to die. So here at least, so I don't have any skin in the game. Otherwise, let me give you a bag of rice and say, look, I'll give you a bag of rice, you remain Hindu. Yes, so that's a choice. And let that person make a choice. And if that choice is given, then that person will make an educated choice and say, look, let me remain a Hindu because this has been given to me. But in our country, पूरा Hindu culture, आज ही मैं देख रहा हूँ भुवनेश्वर में 400-year-old temple. Okay, beautiful temple. I just saw, I think ANI tweeted that. It's going underwater because the dam is filling it up. Now, couldn't that temple have been, taken out of the earth and transplanted somewhere? They do that all the time for, stupid beach houses in Ireland and other. I've seen it. They transport houses. So, for civilization, we don't care about it, So, if you have, on that sense, and the less said about ASI, the better. You had Professor B.B. Lal in complete anguish. He was the guy we owe that the Ayodhya temple is being made, and he was the one who first gave the proof of the temple underneath the Babri Mosque. And he is talking about some civilization which is beyond that, thousands of years beyond that, where the first evidence of farming, and ASI has completely ignored it. I think Madhu Kishparji tweeted an interview of his. It is painful, जब ये सब आपका चल रहा है, आप quote unquote आपकी सरकार है, right? But we have, I don't know. So I see no hope. If there is intense poverty, and I think morally also, if there is intense poverty and you don't offer a way of life or living or some money or something, then morally it is wrong for you to insist that somebody else should convert.
So, brother Abhijit Iyer Mitra says, why has brother Anand turned his back on Christ? I remember he converted me for one Mysore Pak.
Well, now I have the proof. There was this, I took a Twitter poll, who is the real fake Tamilian? So, ab to aa gaya samne. 40,000 people voted, So, 80% believe Abhijit is the, so fake logon ki kya baat karni? Let him go and cook a crab.
Okay, a serious question. What is the strategy to repeal blasphemy laws and sedition to have same freedom of speech standards as the USA in India? तुझे लगता होगा?
नहीं, मुझे नहीं लगता होगा, because I'll tell you a logical reasoning for that and an illogical reasoning, but which is also logical. That I used to think, so let's look at the history of this. There was no blasphemy law. Section 295 did not exist until Rangila Rasool, the whole history. I don't need to go in detail on it. I've written about it. In fact, Gandhi wanted a law. So Gandhi condemned this book, Rangila Rasool, but Ambedkar stood for the publisher who was assassinated by Al-Mutin, all that story. So the law came after that. Right? So जब गांधी जी को law चाहिए, भैया हमारे महात्मा गांधी को law चाहिए, तो मोदी जी बदलेंगे. वो तो गांधी भक्त थे. But the fact of the matter is, according to me, of course, it should be there. I've said it. In fact, in the first 5 minutes, I said nobody who quote unquote blasphemes should ever be arrested. Okay, who offends quote unquote offends religious sensibilities. But Rahul Roshan, again, wretched guy Rahul Roshan, वो हमेशा cycle में spoke डाल देता है ऐसे. He's a real. He comes up with these amazing things, and it makes you think his point of view. And what he says was that when Ilmuddin assassinated the publisher of Rangila Rasool for blasphemy, when this law did not exist, then why do you think that once this law comes, it would change anything? Now, this is tremendously logical. For example, अभी आपके पास अगर मान लो ये law होता, Section 295A, I'm sorry, नहीं होता, abrogated होता, तो ये जो अभी उसके साथ हुआ है, जो बैंगलोर में हुआ है, जो कमलेश तिवारी के साथ हुआ है, you mean to say वो नहीं होता? In fact, when they caught Kamlesh Tiwari's assassins, Hindu article they published, they said we have done nothing wrong. In fact, हमें तो स्वर्ग मिल गया by doing so. This is an honor. Iqbal cried. He said कि देखो ये हम देखते ही रह गए और ये कारपेंटर का बेटा बाजी मार गया. These are words of Allama Iqbal. So I said the same thing. Op India had this conference, and some leftist intern, somebody came and completely took it. समझ में नहीं आया उसको. Well, I don't blame him. But you see, this is the logic, and one has to consider that logic. But despite that, let me say this: that इसमें मेरा see everything. I'll tell you. Whenever I put out a view, I've already thought a counter of that view. Okay, so that इससे पहले कि लोग मुझे झापड़ मारे, मैं अपने आप को झापड़ मार लेता हूं ताकि लोग ना मारे, and let me reform and maybe correct my own view. So I've thought of a counter view to what Rahul said, which is that if you look at 100 blasphemy acts against Islam, maybe 20 of them would be against Prophet Muhammad and Allah. 80 of them would be, not against them, which is completely forbidden. 80 of them would be using Section 295A against something else, maybe Hadith or I don't know, whatever you may call it. So at least if we abrogate 295A, at least those people will not be arrested. That is a limited counterpoint to what Rahul said. But left to me, it should absolutely go.
And you know what? I'll tell you where Rahul makes a mistake. I'll give you a statistical analysis.
डांटो
नहीं डांटना चाहिए अभी. तू और मैं दोनों है तो राहुल को डांटने का तो पूरा मौका है. So here's the thing. Charlie Hebdo 5 साल पहले हुआ, ठीक है? Charlie Hebdo की अभी एनिवर्सरी हुई. उस समय ठीक है, there was bloodshed. मगर हुआ क्या? क्योंकि उन्होंने गोली मारी, सबने खुन्नस में चार्ली हेब्डो की फोटो शेयर करनी शुरू कर दी. उसके बाद से लेकर अब तक वो किसी को नहीं मार पाए चार्ली हेब्डो की फोटो के लिए. इट नाउ टिल द एक्सटेंट कि अभी 5वीं एनिवर्सरी हुई, उन्होंने फिर डाला एंड दे नॉर्मलाइज्ड इट. मैंने जब ये काली का भी हुआ,
इसको आप कभी नहीं कुछ कह सकते. बिलीव मी, आई हेट टू से दिस, but people are marked. So for example, if Kamlesh Tiwari was assassinated 2 years ago, it wouldn't have mattered if he had police protection. He would have been assassinated 20 years from now. Once you're marked, anybody will come. I mean, Salman Rushdie ko hi le lo. Abhi aapko, he's roaming around New York, this and that, but he is a target. Somebody decides that, look, he has blasphemed and my holy book says you cannot do this. It is upon that person.
I agree. But the problem is that what if a million or millions of people do the same thing? How many are they going to kill? That becomes the normalization of taboos in society, right? That's how society
but Kushal, I'll tell you something. The purpose of this is to instill fear, right? So if Charlie Hebdo has done it again, you're saying how many people after Charlie Hebdo, for example, in India, would dare to draw a cartoon? Not many. People have apologized for even lesser things, in India.
Yeah, I agree.
It is the scare.
It is.
For example, would you do it? I'm saying I'm not a hypocrite. I've said this before. I'm not, when the state doesn't back you, which is in this country, the state doesn't back you, your bravery turns into bravado. And the only, result of bravado is Gustakh Rasool ki ek hi saza, sar tan se juda, sar tan se juda.
Yeah, that is true.
I think I'll.
So let's wrap things up. Let's wrap things up. So before
on that wonderful note.
I'll just say somebody made a last comment and then I'll wrap things up. Anna sir, उड़ता तीर बहुत अच्छा लिया. WDTSC. So let's wrap things up today. So Anand, once again, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Sharing your views.
Absolutely.
So guys, once again, thanks for watching it live. I know a lot of you have watched it live. And if you like what I'm doing over here, please subscribe, like, and you can join the membership program or you can become a patron. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Namaste.
Thank you. Thanks.